Welcome, one and all out there in fantasy land, to the Fantasy Forecast, another edition right here on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network on YouTube. I am bigz. He is Grindberg. We're here today to talk about draft day risers. Um, I was looking at this show sheet and I was like, there's a lot of reasons for people to rise, and there's not a lot of context in the title. So basically, the way I looked at it was based on draft slot and landing spot, who was helped with their fantasy assessment by the NFL draft. And there are a couple things. It's not just landing spot, it's not just draft slot. There are, what do the teams do around the player? What do the contracts look like with the players in front of the player on the depth chart? What has the team done since then, moving other players away and things like that? So there's a lot that goes into this, but we did the work so you don't have to. And we'll get to those in a second. How you doing, Mike?
Well, the dust is finally settled here, and it's a couple days removed from the draft, and all the pieces that kind of fell off the wagon, I put together back on it, and I'm looking a lot more clear these days, and things are coming along really good. We put together the rookie guide, and it's coming together really good here, and it's with all these landing spots. We put the homework in, and it's excited to launch right away, and these risers are in the rookie guide, so we're gonna have to talk about them. Bigz, we're talking about quarterbacks, tight ends in our first segment here. Who's the biggest riser? Well, maybe not your biggest riser, because we have our biggest risers of all at the end. So we could be talking about any position at that stage, but we're talking about specifically tight end, quarterback right now. Who do you got at the top of your list as a riser?
So Jalen Milroe is the biggest riser for me. And I kind of had an inkling that he would, but based on draft position, he shot up ahead of a few guys that I kind of had him based on current talent. I had him behind. I had him behind Shedeur Sanders, Kyle McCord, and Will Howard based on their college production and Shedeur Sanders' apparent that value in NFL terms, but we saw how that played out. And Jalen Milroe got a nice little cushy spot right behind Sam Darnold in Seattle, to the point where Seattle offloaded Sam Howell, who we watched as he was, after 14 weeks, in the top 10 in fantasy quarterbacks. Seattle just scuttled him away in favor of Milroe. And we already knew that Milroe had that Jalen Hurts type appeal, where he's a rushing player that happens to be able to throw the ball. And so a couple of years of seasoning and then an opportunity. I think Jalen Milroe on your taxi squad in Dynasty will be a very, very good fantasy asset. And the fact that he is behind Sam Darnold in Seattle at this point makes him a good candidate for a waiver. Keep a waiver eye on him in redraft. Maybe take him in, as a backup quarterback, just in case something happens to Darnold. So Jalen Milroe out of this draft came out. He shot up more than any other quarterback in my rankings. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's not a whole lot of movers or shakers here with this quarterback room. A lot of these guys actually fell quite a bit in rankings in my eyes, especially when you look at the grand scheme of, fantasy football relevant players, especially year one. I thought there may have been one or two more outside of Cam Ward and Jaxson Dart. Maybe Shedeur, Jalen Milroe were getting in that conversation. Milroe got a really good landing spot here, and he jumped up a lot of guys. And another guy for me that jumped up based off of draft capital and landing spot is Tyler Shough. Him getting that draft capital and going to a spot where the quarterback room is uncertain. Derek Carr been talking about his shoulder, things not going well with him for durability questions. The Saints are signaling, a pivot towards the future. Shough walks into a more than underrated fantasy friendly landing spot in most leagues here. New Orleans fortified their offensive line, with Calvin Banks. They have dynamic playmakers. We know that. Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, they got good guidance. New offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore is going to be there, and Shough is a true draft riser for me. It's not just because of the scheme fit, but the opportunity. Obviously, he's not going to be a guy I'm going to be looking to draft and redraft leagues out of the gate here. He's like a waiver wire guy if he can get in, but he might have an opportunity here year one to actually get some playing time. And for Dynasty, that's a huge thing. Some stats that kind of popped out here: 8.2 yards per attempt in 2023. He's got some big playability. He's got some rushing upside here too. 11 rushing touchdowns over his career, 733 rushing yards, not prolific, but still respectable. 23 passing touchdowns, and that scheme fit. So may not be a day one or day two pick, but he landed with an opportunity that could get him some playing time. And that's what we're looking for these rookies here, right, Biggs?
Yeah, and the funniest part is that he's going to be the last player drafted from the 1990s, or from the previous century.
Yeah.
I think that Shough actually does have a chance to be New Orleans' starting quarterback. If we look at the quarterback room right now and we have a fully healthy Derek Carr, then obviously Shough is the backup. But Shough owns draft capital over Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, if I'm not mistaken. And draft capital goes a long way in determining whether somebody is going to be a starter or not. If you have a higher draft capital, then quarterbacks in the quarterback room that come from a previous regime, you definitely have a shot at being the starter on day one. And Shough is 25 years old. He's the oldest guy in the quarterback room besides Derek Carr, I think. I didn't get to check on Jake Haener's age, but I know that Shough is older than Spencer Rattler. So he may not have as much on-field experience because of his injuries, but there's absolutely a shot that by the time 53-man rosters come around and we get to week one of the NFL season, if he's the starting quarterback in New Orleans, I might be taking him as a backup quarterback.
And the thing is like we laugh a little bit about the age of these guys, these quarterbacks, but it's almost a good thing now because these guys aren't getting that time to percolate in the offense like they in years past, where the NFL would draft guys and develop them in a system where these guys, especially if they get first round draft capital, they're getting pushed into their lineup right away, not getting that time to develop. And a guy like Shough, remember Michael Penix last year, got some, a long college career, Jayden Daniels, and now these guys are able to get into the lineup and perform right away. So that might be the case for Tyler Shough, getting that extra year to play. And now he's going to be in an opportunity where things could happen for him. Where else things can happen is on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. And we're going to, get you to hear about it right
Let's
here.
Go.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to Fantasy Sports.
Yeah. One of the things, as we were talking about before, that this draft kind of showed us was how in fantasy football we've had some traditional tropes that are kind of going out of the way. Now, our guy FF Coder over at the Undroppables, his quarterback model shows that college experience is having a really, really big effect on where quarterbacks get ranked and in terms of their potential NFL production. So we're moving away from the youth, the running back class. We're moving away from what round you have, draft capital you have, what round you were drafted in, just because of there's so much talent, even really late in the 5th and 6th round. So a lot of these things that we've been living by in fantasy football are changing. You can't just look at a running back now and say, well, he was drafted in the 5th round, he'll never get a shot, when there are so many guys who are so good being drafted in the 6th and 7th rounds too. So it's an interesting frontier that we're at in the changing world of fantasy football. And but you guys don't need to worry yourselves with that because we're the ones doing the analysis. So just listen to us and we've got your back.
Well, let's get into, getting their back some more here. And got a couple wide receivers that moved up in our ranks, at least. And that's a good thing because, when we're looking at these prospects, doing our scouting reports, and we're looking at them. We've had some of these guys at a stage. Now they're elevated a bit more, and bigz is going to talk about his number one wide receiver riser here.
Well, we were going to talk about 2 wide receivers, but this will be a riser for me and also a teaser for the next episode where I have a faller. I'm going to talk about Jayden Higgins from Iowa State University. He was my favorite guy at the Senior Bowl. I have been pumping him up since I got back from Mobile. The guy just absolutely wowed me, and I didn't understand why the rest of the community was not on board with me. Slowly over time, people started getting a look at his athleticism at 6'4", 214. People started kind of digging into his production profile. He started hitting reception perception. He started getting talked about on Undroppables podcast. And next thing you know, he's moving up. Now, he had a really good unscore from the Undroppables. You need to go to the undroppables.com and go grab that. It's a big wide receiver analysis model based on college production, and you'd be very interested to see where Jayden Higgins lands. But what really got me was his draft capital in the NFL draft and going to Houston. Now, we know that CJ Stroud is not a running quarterback. He's going to throw the ball a lot, and he likes to do that. He also has Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and no longer has Stephon Diggs. They did happen to draft his college teammate Jalen Milroe, but if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since Nico Collins has had a season in which he didn't miss time with injury. On top of that, you have Tank Dell, who's trying to come back from a gruesome injury himself. Jayden Higgins might be in a very, very good position to be the wide receiver 1 at some point this year for the Houston Texans. And that draft capital shows that Houston was right there in lockstep with me on their analysis of Jayden Higgins, and they love him, and they spent the capital to get him. And he landed in a great spot, and he's a big riser for me at wide receiver.
Good. That makes me feel a little bit better, because I was a little skeptical about his landing spot because of, they drafted an inside slot guy and Jalen Milroe. They have, a similar profiled wide receiver, Nico Collins. So, I was seeing where he fits, and you're giving me a little bit more. I'm hearing both sides of the story here, and I still haven't made my decision because I'm really high on Higgins. He did slide for me a bit, but you're bringing him back to kind of where I had him earlier. So,
I see it as a similar situation to Jalen McMillan on the Buccaneers last year with Chris Godwin in front of him, but with a quicker path.
There you go. Okay. Good to know.
And better draft capital. Okay.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into my guy, because he's a guy that had a lot of emphasis ahead of the draft because of how his last year in college wasn't the best. And I'm talking about Luther Burden. And headed into the draft, he was my wide receiver 8. I was pretty bearish on him, to be honest. And after seeing him land 39th overall with the Bears, that now cemented me as my wide receiver 5. And it's not just about the draft capital bias. It's kind of about the fit and kind of where some of these other guys landed. He joins, that ever evolving Bears offense. Caleb Williams, new head coach, Ben Johnson, whose creative motion heavy system is designed to, maximize the players around him in space. This is where Burden will thrive. He's a yards after the catch machine, and he's got strong hands and the contact balance of a running back. And speaking of which, the Bears didn't go out and spend heavy draft capital on the running back. I think they might have been waiting to try and get Henderson with, this pick, and they ended up getting Luther Burden because Henderson went to the Patriots. And now, they got a system here where they might be able to design some plays for him. So when I first initially, heard that Burden was going to the Bears, it wasn't, a great landing spot for me, especially, in the immediate future. Maybe not this year, but I think ultimately, long-term wise, even this year, Ben Johnson is going to be the guy that is going to be bringing his emphasis in that lineup. And he's one of the first playmakers, he's drafted for the Bears. So, there's rumblings about DJ Moore being shipped out, and that would immediately offer, Luther Burden opportunity. His stats speak for himself: 6 point yards after the catch, 1,200 yards from scrimmage as a sophomore. That sophomore season was the one we needed to highlight here because he's shown that potential. The Bears did not need another wide receiver essentially, and they chose to get one, and it fits the vision. So in a class filled with, some polished runners, Burden stood out as a scheme weapon, and Ben Johnson, I think, is going to just get not more than a pass catcher. He's going to get one of his chess pieces that's going to make his stock rise even more, especially kind of in Dynasty in his second year I'm looking for, but maybe him seeing a good chunk of the pie here in year one.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off on my comments on Luther Burden until our next episode.
There you go. So he might be a faller for you. There it is. So we're on separate ends here, and that's a good thing because, maybe you'll be getting him at a discount or paying up for him. We'll have to see. We'll see what bigz' analysis is on our next show. So you're gonna have to stick around and hear a loser show next episode. So let's get into the running backs, bigz, and who's your top riser?
So my top riser is Trevor Etienne. And I really, really love what happened with Etienne. He landed in Carolina, and Carolina is dealing with the injury of Jonathan Brooks, who they drafted last year. And Jonathan Brooks is going to miss the entire 2025 season with that injury that he suffered last year. Now, they do have Chuba Hubbard that they just signed to an extension. So Chuba is really the running back one in that room. They also went out and they got Rico Dowdle. Now, the thing about that situation is that Dowdle is a cut candidate. Chuba has a $9.9 million cap hit if they decide to cut him, so that's not going to happen. But Rico Dowdle has no cap hit if they decide to let him go, and that puts Etienne in position with his pass-catching ability and his 3-year breakout or 3-year emergence from college football. He has a chance to be the immediate third down back in that Carolina offense with Bryce Young and their new toy Teteroa McMillan running routes. Trevor Etienne might be one of the best risers. He wound up going in the 4th round, which is not usually typically great, but the situation he landed in is fantastic, and I can't wait to see how he does. He's going to be an extreme value by the end of the summer.
Cool. Good, because that's a good situation to walk into. There's some cloudedness, and that's what we're looking for here on the forecast. Is get that forecast out, and we got some cloudy skies ahead in that in that backfield. But that's where somebody could clear those skies and get some sun on them, and Etienne's in a perfect position for that.
I think the main thing is how many people would have told you that he would have been in the top 10 of running backs drafted this year. He was the 9th running back off the board. That means that Carolina wanted him because they like what he brings to the table over some other guys with very similar profiles. They went with Etienne, and that means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So my guy that I'm bullish on after the draft is Cam Skattebo, and the reason is he's just not just a grinder with a cool name. He's a legitimate threat that will earn a role in training camp. I'm convinced, the landing spot in a backfield that's got some cloudiness to it. That's what we're looking for here, especially in running back rooms where guys are fighting for any sort of position. Not a whole lot of draft capital is invested in Devin Singletary or Tyrone Tracy, and neither of them have been proven to be a long-term answer at this stage. Tyrone Tracy, there's still some, questions about him being that converted wide receiver, and that might be just a really good compliment to Cam Skattebo being a hard-nosed runner up the middle. He's not the fastest guy or the most flashiest, but he brings a valuable skill set to the Giants team. And, they need to be able to absorb some contact and make something out of nothing. And I think Skattebo's got the ability to take a 3-yard loss and turn it into a 4-yard gain. And that's exactly what the Giants need in their offense. He's not just a power back. He's got 45 receptions the last season, and it'll show that he's got the skill set to contribute also in the passing game. Not too bad at all here. 3.7 yards after contact per attempt, 27 broken tackles, and on 192 career carries. Not too shabby here, and 5.2 yards per carry. So liking what I see from Skattebo in a position where he's going to be able to maybe get himself a opportunity early, and that's what you're looking for at that running back position. And Cam Skattebo getting some draft capital here in a good landing spot brings him as a riser for me.
Yeah, and I love him too. He profiles as an every down back. He and Tyrone Tracy can work in tandem with him running the power, but also having ability in the passing game. He did lead FBS last year in receiving yards among running backs. He wasn't a Lan Larison, but he was pretty good. And then Devin Singletary, $6 million cap hit. If the Giants decide that it's worth it to eat that money, they can get rid of him real quick, and Cam Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy can take the reins, and Skattebo takes over. So I really, really love the spot for him. It's going to be an emerging team with a defense that is just scary, and will be getting the ball back to the quarterback quite often in the coming years. So yeah, Skattebo is a great guy, great pick.
Awesome. Yeah. What's a great pick is the FSAN rookie guide that's going to be
Oh yeah, tell me more about it.
It's going to be releasing probably this weekend. Over 90 pages of player information. We've got IDP players, 25 of them, over 50 players, offensive skill players from other quarterbacks. We got consensus rankings, dynasty rankings, redraft rankings in there, advanced analytics like your yards per route run, your missed tackles forced. We got it all in that bad boy. And, their RAS score, their combine testing, it's been a huge group effort, and we're come together, and it's coming around really nicely, and you're going to be able to see it for a very low price. And that's going to be unveiled in the next little while here. So be on the move for that. And what else should be on the move?
I'm sorry. I was just drooling because I want that.
You should get it. You'll have access to it, bigz. You were a big part of what we did there, so it's awesome.
Hey, who's my top draft day riser? Let's play the video.
Let's do it.
You've been watching me talk about this guy for months. You know how I feel about him, and the draft capital spoke louder than anything else that could have justified all of the statements I've been making over the last few months. Jaxson Dart, quarterback of the New York Giants, is my top draft day riser for 2025. This is a situation where the New York Giants traded up into the first round, giving Jaxson Dart first round draft capital. He goes into a situation where, were he the starting quarterback, he'd be looking at a target hog in Wan'Dale Robinson, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL already in second-year Malik Neighbors. He'd have Cam Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy behind him, both of them very able in blocking and in receiving. And he's also got a tight end named Theo Johnson, who I'm really, really high on. This could be a completely revamped New York Giants offense. But he's the quarterback 3 because he's got 2 veterans ahead of him. Well, those 2 veterans are Jameis Winston, who is absolutely a cut candidate, won't cost the Giants anything to let him go, and Russell Wilson, who we know is cooked. So all Jaxson Dart needs to do is show what he's done and be efficient in the RPO, be accurate in the intermediate and short game, and the best deep ball passer in the entire 2025 quarterback class. Do that in rookie camp, mini camp, and during the training camp days, and he could be the starting quarterback for the New York Giants in week 1. I am making him a top 5 pick in Superflex dynasty drafts, and he's going to carry value forever, not to mention the cheat code of averaging 500 yards every year in college. Now, going through some of the charting and some of the comps, he's comped to Sam Howell and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, we know, is one of the most efficient quarterbacks passing the ball in the NFL. And Sam Howell, we know, if it wasn't for the sacks that he was taking in Washington, he'd be looked on as a top 5 quarterback with a starting job in the NFL right now. He had an unfortunate year, but the 14 games that he did play, he was a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. Jaxson Dart fits that mold, and I'm so elated that he's here.
This was a proud moment for me, just watching you, and this is an important day. So yeah, I'll let you have all that glory. I should have let you go last. In reality, it should have been the centerpiece of this. But I'll do you a good one. I'll make a good short for this.
You should have had a camera on me for my 2 reactions during the draft. Number one was when Jaxson Dart went in the first round, and number two was when Trey Harris went to the Chargers in the second round.
Yeah, I heard you were about to jump off the roof.
I was bereft.
All right, let's hear about my guy. Okay, I love this. I'm talking about RJ Harvey once again. He landed in the perfect spot with the Denver Broncos. His situation immediately positions him as one of the biggest winners of the draft. Sean Payton has built a reputation for squeezing fantasy production out of his backfield, and it's, not the most predictable way at times, but he's helped fantasy managers in the past, and he's also, set them free and really screwed them as well. But I think this is a clear indication that they believe in RJ Harvey, given second round draft capital, his skill set, size, versatility, put him in a unique position to thrive in this system. He may not be the traditional bell cow, but he's got that size and speed similar to Alvin Kamara or a bigger version of Reggie Bush, who, Sean Payton's only been able to draft 4 guys in the second round, and Reggie Bush, Alvin Kamara, and now RJ Harvey's another one of them. And you compare those 3, I'd like what I see. And RJ Harvey's got the ability to make plays in both the passing and the running game. I think he's going to come in there and, carry a 3-down back role. I'm not discounting Audric Estime because I think he's going to play a big part as well, being that bruiser as well. But, you can't deny the draft capital, the 440-yard dash, 54 explosive runs in 2024, 1,500 rushing yards, top 10 finish in both vertical and broad jumps at the combine, and his top speed at 22.3 miles per hour as well. 5th among the running backs. He's explosive. He's got the dynamicness. He's shown to hold a workload as well. So I just think that combination of size, speed, versatility, Sean Payton's history of developing guys like RJ Harvey's, and I just think that this is a really good situation. I know he's a bit older in age, but for me, I like running backs for 2 years, and then I kind of get rid of them anyhow in Dynasty. So RJ Harvey's perfect spot for me, and I think that this is going to be great for fantasy football in general.
Yeah, I love the rise. Just like nobody would have thought that Etienne would be the 9th running back off the board. Absolutely nobody thought RJ Harvey would be the 5th running back off the board. The fact that he went ahead of Caleb Johnson, Bashal Tootin, and Cam Skattebo just was pretty mind-blowing. Not a fan of the situation. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that Broncos backfield. It's kind of like the Chiefs wide receiver room. I tend to stay away because you never know how it's going to work. And but he rose a lot. He was a smaller guy that, in terms of profile, but totally opened some eyes on draft day.
Totally. All right, man. What a good show. Unfortunately, next time you're going to hear about some guys that fell off the board. So we're not going to be talking about all roses, but you know what happens? There might be some bright lights that come out of that show anyhow. So
sometimes knowing who not to draft is the friends we made along the way.
Exactly. I love it, man. Do it like you do so well, my man.
Sweet. We hope you win.
Hope you win. Peace out.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.